Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Geoffrey Semaganda, and we're a little bit late on our call, but I have a special guest today. We're going to make this call very simple, very short. And today we're going to discuss something to do with, financial strategies, but most importantly, I think we're trying to keep a few points with regards to the teenagers of today on how can they really go on to plan and prepare themselves for the future, because you see today's economy is less forgiving than maybe the economy you and me grew up in if you listen to this and you're over the age of 30. But today what we need to do is to come up a few ideas, few strategies that I believe can actually help our young people to get ready for the world they're going to face in the near future. And I've got a special guest, my good friend, Chip Cummings. I'm actually late on the call. I'm hoping he's online. Chip, are you there, sir? Hello, Chip.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, fantastic. Sorry about that, Geoffrey. They had me muted. Good to talk to you.
No problem. How you doing, buddy?
Very, very good, thank you. It's exciting to be back with you on the air.
Well, what we're going to do, because obviously we have some technical challenges here on my end, and I think for some reason we couldn't get you unmuted. So what we do, just go straight into the call, and what do you think was the best way to go about this call? Because I wanted us to talk about financial strategies for the younger people, but maybe come up with some new ideas on how we can prepare these younger generation to really think of financial literacy as one of the key elements for them to plan for their future. Now, what's your take on this subject? Because I know you were just getting straight into it. This call is going to be very shorter than usual. But what do you take on that subject right now?
Well, it is very important. Obviously, financial literacy is something that you're not born with. It's something that you don't inherit. It's something that you really need to learn. And the earlier on you can learn these strategies, the more successful and productive you're going to be in your adult life. Let's face it, as you mentioned at the top of the call, the economy has been shaken in all parts of the world, not just in the U.S. or Europe. It really has hit everybody and has made us more conscious about how we have to spend our money and protect it. And that is something that if you learn from a very, very young age, those are habits that you can take with you the rest of your life and create a lot of long-term wealth with. So it's really key that we get to the younger generation.
One of the things that's always makes me wonder, since I was a kid myself, is that when we want our kids to get into music or sports or any of these other things, we want them to start very early. So if somebody said to you, your son thinking of winning a gold medal, you won't want them to start after the age of 20. You want them to start as early as possible. But when it comes to the subject, it's very important, the subject that's going to dominate their lives forever, we don't seem to give a very big issue. I'll give you an example. Here in the UK, and I'm sure in the US is the same thing, financial literacy has not been part of the national curriculum. It's just actually been proposed this year that actually from, I think for 2014, it will be part of the school program that from the age, I think, 14 onwards, they have to make sure it's part of the program, which I think is a phenomenal idea. I mean, we've been campaigning on this for so many years, but we have a world full of young people, they come out of university, they don't know what to do. What other tips can you think of right now? I know I didn't really give you a heads up on this, but what other tips can you think of, and what do you think is important? How can a young person basically start?
Well, the issue you raise is an important one, and you're right. Unlike sports where you have, some raw talent that you can develop, especially at an early age, financial literacy is something that affects everybody. If you're going to be a soccer, football star, you develop that talent early on. It's not something you do when you're 20 years old. And financial literacy is really the same thing. And what we do, Geoffrey, is we really break it down into 4 categories when we're talking to teens. And it is unfortunate that it is not learned during the school. But the 4 key categories are, number 1, how to make it. Number 2, then, is how to manage it. Number 3 is to multiply it. And number 4 is to protect it.
Agreed.
The first one is, of course, how to make it. Most young people don't understand that in their lifetime, they're going to have the ability to manage over $1 million. They're going to have over $1 million go through their hands, and how well they understand and protect that is going to determine how much of that they actually get to keep. So once they understand that they're going to have that kind of capacity, then it becomes all of a sudden much more important to them to learn how to manage it, multiply it, and protect it.
You see, you just said something very important. People don't realize that over their working age, they actually will go through $1 million or more in terms of income they generate. But they don't seem to understand that because obviously we don't really sit down and look at the numbers. So one of the things that what we're trying to focus on now is, first of all, to get it very clear to young people that, you know what, you need to start early to think about how to make money, but most importantly, you need to think of how to manage it, because one of the key issues is that I think we focus on so much of making money, but we don't focus on how to manage it, but most importantly, how also to multiply it, as you said, and the last part, how to protect it. But I think as we're talking about the making money side, let's put that on the side for the time being, because I think we spend too much time teaching our kids how to go make money out there. We can come back to that later. But let's talk about how to manage it. What are the basic things you can use as tips you can really think of as a young person, teenager, listening to this call right now? What are the things they really need to think of as a starting point, to think of money management as a key part of their over their life development?
Well, and that is key. You're right. There's lots of different ways to make it, and we spend a lot of time talking about that. But in terms of managing it, take the dollar bill or the yen or the euro or whatever it might be in terms of the currency for you. When you're holding that bill really doesn't care who's holding it. It doesn't care the ownership, but it does care about the management and how you as a young person decide to manage that money, and where you put it is going to make a determination as to whether or not it evaporates or it multiplies or it's used for something productive. You get to decide. So one of the first things is to think about how you're actually going to use that. Is it used for something that's a necessity, such as housing or utilities or food? Is it something that you are just going to spend on entertainment value? Or is it something that you're going to use to turn into $2 or €100 or 1,000 yen or whatever it might be? How can you do that? So when you understand that you have the control on how to manage this, that's the first step of understanding how to multiply it.
Okay. Now, the protection side of things. I mean, as you can best just imagine, we just want to touch on a little bit on that. What would you see as the key points on? I know we're talking about young people, but really this call applies to anybody, young, old. So how can people now think about protecting? Because I do believe that's not how much money we make, it's how much money we keep. But how and what points can you really outline and really give for those listeners right now to think about protection as really one of the key elements of financial literacy or financial security?
Well, in terms of protecting it, the first thing you need to do is understand that you have to set the guidelines. You set the rules. And when I talk about setting the rules, the first important step is setting a personal budget and budgeting what it takes to actually live. As a young person going out on their own, whatever age that might be, you are going to have basic expenses such as fuel for your automobile, housing, food. You need to understand what those basic expenses are and limit those as best you can. When you know what that foundation is, then you can start working on budgeting what the additional items are going to be. So you protect it, number one, by establishing that budget and you setting up those rules of what that money is going to do for you.
You see, you said something very important there. Put a budget. Put a limit to how much you're going to spend, because that's what young people don't really understand, because at the end of the day, they watch this MTV and all they see people spending and spending and spending. They don't realize that Actually, if you spend more than what you earn, you're in trouble from day one. It sounds basic common sense, but you'd be amazed how many people actually, even the grown-ups, actually don't look at it from that particular viewpoint. But let's really talk about, because obviously young people they have parents. Okay, so let's think about what are the tips, or how can we really make this as an important issue for parents to really get this in their head, that really, if you don't get your son, your daughter, to get this understanding now, if you don't start it expecting the government or the schools or someone else to do it for you, then you're really leaving everything to chance, and you can't afford to do that. Like I said earlier, the economy today is less forgiving than it was before. The world is much smaller, the competition much, much higher, so you have to really get yourself to your kids to really get ready and prepare themselves in a way of understand the most important subject that's going to dominate their lives forever, which is money.
Well, that's very true, and you said something very key there in that, a lot of parents don't take the initiative to teach their kids about money. They expect the government or the schools to do it, and that's just not the case. As parents, you need to understand two things. Number one, the kids will do as you do. If you don't take control of your own finances, how do you expect your kids to do it? And number two, always share the information with the kids. A lot of parents say, well, I'm not interested in discussing my finances with my children. I don't want them to know about the basic expenses or my income. Well, if you don't do it, then who's going to? If they don't understand those basics from you and how you spend money, they're only going to watch you spend money, because that's what they do. You go shopping with the kids, they watch you spend money. You go to the grocery store, you go to the movie theater, whatever it is. They don't understand the earnings side, but they do understand the expense side. And as kids, you need to understand that there are a lot of people out there willing to take your money, but far fewer people willing to just give you money. And you need to understand the difference. It's very easy to spend money, but it's a lot harder to make it and protect it.
Well, it's first of all, the point that you mentioned is exactly for the young people to be aware, but most importantly, the parents to be aware that, they have to take that initiative to get their kids started, because, I've seen it, I've had it before. My kids are too young to talk about money or to discuss anything to do with money, which is actually the wrong mistake, because you're right. They learn from you. They do what exactly you do, and expect someone else better to do so. It's actually misguided. So anyway, now coming back to one of the final key parts as far as this is concerned now, we're talking about young people here, but as you said, the parents, kids will learn and will watch and learn from them. What and how can basically parents, in your opinion, basically start, organizing themselves or starting teaching the kids in a way without not being too much in their face, because if you make it too much in your face, they can actually, walk away from it. But how could they start thinking of that and put that into their day-to-day activity? Because I usually say that, start this discussion even at the dinner table. If we're going to use a credit card at the hotel, at the restaurant, explain to that how the credit card works. If you're in the supermarket buying some stuff, take the cash out of the cash machine, give to the kids, let them fill the money and let them make the payments. They will see how much is going out. They start actually even to start understanding, oh, God, what do we do? The money we spend, they think that it would actually cost a lot of money, because some kids actually don't even know, because we don't give them the opportunity to know, to see what is going on. Now, in your opinion, what are the key tips that you think parents should start on to think about, to say, okay, from now on, these are the few bits and pieces they need to work on towards this subject, and obviously they can always seek help if they need help?
Well, that is a great question, Geoffrey, and it's probably the one that we get most of the time when we're working with clients and talking to people around the country and around the world, is how do I get started, and what are the things that I should start with kids, and how early? First of all, you can never start too early. As soon as they are watching television or interacting with other kids, they're going to start to understand the concept of money, or at least trading some things. You need to start early on with the concept of an allowance and giving them their own money so that they can make decisions, both good and bad, on how to manage that money. I would much rather have a 7 or 8 year old go in and spend money on something that is frivolous and understand that that money is now gone and what that decision, the ramifications are, as opposed to when they're 27. So what you want to do is give them a little bit of their own money. If you're going to go to the store and buy them a small toy, don't just buy them the toy and give it to them. Let them go through the experience of taking the money, buying the toy, and then understanding that they have to do that trade money for toy or money for candy or whatever it might be. And getting them used to that feeling of that trade will get them to understand how to protect it and that there is a feeling of loss when that money is gone. So that's really the place to start.
Right, and one of the key tips actually somebody gave me some years ago, that when you're buying kids toys, that especially these computer games and Nintendos and stuff that you can always resell, is always to tell them that, okay, I'll buy you the first one, but the second one, the upgrade of this particular computer game, you have to come up with 30% or 50% of the money. Why? Because we'll put the old game on eBay and sell it. So that we can raise money to do that. Now, when they see, when they know they have to sell this particular game, they learn to look after it. They look after it more than how they would have done if there was no incentives for them to look after it. Now, all of a sudden, a year later or 6 months later, they don't want the game, can put the game back on eBay, get 30% of the value for it. They start to get involved in the decision making, also keep something a little bit cleaner, a little bit more look better than it was. Otherwise, kids just go and destroy things. As far as they're concerned, it's not their responsibility. The parents who are going to buy them a new one anyway. Who cares? So I had that particular idea years ago, and I thought it's a brilliant idea, and I've shared that idea with so many people. I'm sure people listen to this, they might actually try it, because the children need incentives to be able to look after what they have. They learn discipline, responsibility. They start to get this particular understanding. The subject is big, Chip. We can't cover everything else. But what about when it comes to things that what you talk about so much, investing in shares in the stock market, and should we introduce kids on those subjects also?
Oh, most definitely. And you raise a great point, because even like you were talking about selling, reselling toys on eBay or whatever it might be, that really falls under the protecting part of the assets. And when they understand it goes beyond money, it does involve assets. That really hits home with them. And as you were just discussing with stocks or bonds or mutual funds or anything like that, I do like to start kids off on that track very early by giving them what I would call play money. Say, here, we've got $100 or €100. You've got the ability to go out and spend this on a company. What company would you like? And a lot of times kids will identify with companies like Nike, or McDonald's, or other types of companies they come in constant contact with. And when you say, okay, we're going to invest in that company, and today's share is, $14 per share, you now own 10 shares of this. Let's see what happens in a week. Let the kids look that up in the newspaper or online and say, hey, look, that's gone up to $17 a share. You've now made $7 or whatever it is in profit because of the company. Then you trade that into real life, and now they start understanding how the economy works and how companies are able to generate profits. They get much more excited about it when they are involved. If they're involved in the decision-making process, and that's why I say do this with play money, they start to understand the concepts, but they get more involved and will learn it much faster, appreciate it, and protect that knowledge much more readily.
Absolutely, well said, Chip. Because one of the things also to your point, what also you're trying to illustrate to the kids that you don't get rich in one day. It takes time to be rich. It also takes time to be poor. Nobody was born rich and nobody was born poor. We're all born in the same environment. But if the kids go on to understand that, okay, that company by owning a piece of that particular company. As that company getting richer, I'm getting richer too. Obviously, they also learn that company also can go down. They also understand there's also loss due involved, but also they get to understand they walk taller because they know I own a piece of that particular company. Start to read the Financial Times and look at the numbers, look at the annual reports every year. They start to get the basic understanding of how money and how the corporation works. And all of a sudden, even schools start to become more exciting because now they know why they're doing it in the first place. Because sometimes when I was going to school, I didn't even know what I'm going to school for in the first place. The only reason it got me because the war started and I had to go and feed my family. That's the only reason. It wasn't that. You see, I wouldn't even have known. I didn't even know what my dad does. So many kids go through those particular things. But I think that's a really, really good point. Chip, this call was supposed to be very short now. What are the final tips you need to pass on to parents right now? Because even though this call, we need to talk to young people, but really we need to start from parents first. And, we're going to be working on this new book coming out, Financial Literacy for the teenagers. We need also to give them a few tips. And where should they start from today?
Yeah, well, that's a great point, Geoffrey. And yes, you and I are working on an updated project to share some new updated information with parents and kids. But parents also know that, number one, this starts with them, and they've got to be able to teach these concepts to the kids because these are that will last with them for a lifetime. This is not something that will just go away or is a one-time thing. This is a lifetime skill. It is something that is learned. And, once you learn it in the basic ways that we've talked about, then you take that to the business world. As you know, I manage millions and millions of dollars in real estate portfolios and property management and projects, and the only way that our customers would trust us with those millions of dollars is because we've mastered these skills. We know how to protect it. We know how to multiply it, and that's something that you learn as kids. So parents, you really need to start early on, and for the kids, again, it doesn't matter your background, rich, poor, black, white, purple. Whatever your background is, you can master these skills, and once you do, again, the money doesn't care who's holding it, but you get to decide how you're going to get it to grow and to protect it.
Fantastic, Chip. It's always a pleasure to have you on this call, and I think those that are listening to this call, they will understand there's a lot more to come as we're going to lay the foundation of giving people new strategies on how to help themselves so that they can help their children to move forward in this, I call it unforgiving world of economics, and we need to get our people really get the grips of economics, getting grip of money, how the system works, because the world is more competitive than it was years ago. Chip, it's really good to talk to you. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll carry on this call maybe next week. Take care, buddy. Thanks so much.
You bet. Geoffrey, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and look forward to doing it again soon.
Good man. Take care. Bye-bye for now.